Hello, everybody. How you doing? Everybody out there in Randland, hope you're doing all well. Unfortunately, we're having a little bit of trouble here with our Facebook thing, so if you're just going to take another second or two here to get us up live, having a little bit of an issue. New link for our rant. I'm just putting it on right now for those of you who are on Facebook who are watching right now. Unfortunately, we had a little bit of technical problem with the first one that I did live. So right now, I'm just putting it up there. So if you could just share with your friends out there the new link for today's rant, please do so. And thanks again for everybody for joining us here today. And listen, I got to tell you, I want to thank everybody for the feedback from on Monday's rant. I talked about children and I talked about parents and teachers. And I got to tell you, I want to thank everybody who gave me some feedback, good, bad, negative. I got to tell you, quite a few people didn't like what I said, but a lot of people, great positive feedback. So again, all about what we really want to hear is the feedback of whatever we talk about. Moreover, if you have any thoughts, ideas, or you want to more about about other things that we've been talking about here at the Rant Network, please put it in the email, send it to us right at rant@therantnetwork.com. Please send it over there or post it up on Facebook. Love, 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 love to hear what you have to say about our different rants. So today, again, for those of you who saw us last week and were wondering, no, we are no longer going to be the 45-minute rant. Our format has been adjusted, obviously, based on certain feedback. We are going to go no more than 15 minutes. And I'm looking forward to getting your comments. If you have any comments, please put it out there on our chat. If you're watching us through the live stream or on Facebook, love to hear some of your comments about any questions, any concerns, anything you have to say about today's rant or any future rants or what have you. Now, today, what I wanted to talk about was role models. And it really predicates on what I started talking about on Monday when it came up to talking to people about teachers and being, those that are inspiring. And it led me to think about teachers being role models in their own way. But I was reading up about something about how people expect role models, how they are supposed to act and be and what have you. And what I just could not understand at all is just because you're an athlete and God gave you the talent to put a puck in a net, a ball in a basket, have a round ball hit a round sphere, whatever your sport or your success is, when did that make you a role model? Now, I know in society today, just because you're an entertainer, just because you're an athlete, just because you have that kind of financial success or that sporting success or whatever, you're automatically a role model. Not exactly. Not in my belief. And the same thing I could say for entertainers. Some of the greatest film artists, performers, musicians, whatever, I'm sorry. I can't think that they're real role models. And yet, society, the media, we put such extraordinary pressure that those people must be role models. Let me give you an example of why I think it's a little bit misguided. And it has to do with our politicians. One example is our politicians. Now, if you think about our politicians who are out there, they're supposed to be role models, right? What we heard throughout the entire 4-year Trump administration was he's a terrible leader, a terrible role model for our children. He's a terrible, terrible, terrible role model. He won a popularity contest, ladies and gentlemen. Albeit, call it whatever you want about the electoral system in the United States, it is irrelevant. He won a popularity contest. And yet, we expected him to be a role model. It turned out to be the opposite. But forget about Trump, for example. Let's talk about any politician. And I'll give you a good example of the one that represents my writing. Now, we're in the middle of COVID. There's a wonderful, wonderful pandemic happening all over the place. And our politicians, our heads of government begged people, don't travel during this period of COVID. Stay home. And yet, politicians traveled. Went to the Caribbean, went to Cuba, went to Hawaii, went to all kinds of places, including the member of parliament from my own riding, traveled to the United States. He had his reasons. And yet, he's supposed to be a role model. He's not. He won a popularity contest. They call it an election. It doesn't make him a role model. He's just a paid person to represent my riding. Politicians have lied, have cheated. They've done all kinds of things. And expecting them to be role models, we could expect it and we'll be disappointed. There are very few out there that I could say that I would call a role model who are politicians. That's just one example. I'll give you another one. The royal couple, the royal family in the UK. I mean, everybody rants and raves. There's a TV show about that family. And they're supposed to be role models. I mean, you want to be like royalty. I mean, there's a certain dignity. There's a certain gravitas. There's a certain je ne sais quoi about the royal family. And if you looked at each and every one of Queen Elizabeth's children, you got to ask yourself, are those the kind of people you want to have as your role model? Though we're fortunate enough to be born into a royal family, it doesn't make them a role model. It's crazy, but we do that. We expect that from those type of people. It's the same thing I talked about athletes. When I started this whole thing, it was about athletes. They have a God-given gift to do the best that they can. They're a high-paid individuals, highly paid. Another rant for another day about the absurdity behind paying athletes and entertainers gazillions of dollars and nurses and teachers not, but again, rant for the next day. But for today, folks, the whole idea that these athletes are high-paying and all of a sudden they're role models is garbage. I played hockey in a beer league with a former Montreal Alouette football player. Not a high-paid person. He's playing in a league that is secondary, tertiary league or whatever. And I'd asked him, life as a football player, it must be unbelievable. It must be great, grandiose, whatever. And he says, you know what? My dream was to play in the big league, the National Football League. But the expectation, the attitude towards the athletes, the expectation of how that we should act, because it's unreal, unrealistic, it's unachievable, it's unattainable for the most of them. Sadly enough, when you're talking about football players, and though many of them, if not all of them, had to go through the university process and high school, it doesn't mean that they got the right education. It doesn't mean that they were educated to the point where they could be not only formally, but like educated in such a way that they could be the appropriate role models. Because you talk to football players, their entire life was on the football field. You talk to hockey players, it was on the ice. You talk to baseball players, it was on the baseball field. Basketball players on the basketball court. At any point, did they talk to you about how to be a role model? They don't. But the expectation is that they are going to be a role model for our children. And yet, as a parent, I'm pointing to those athletes and those people and say, aren't they wonderful? Aren't they great? Aren't they spectacular? Don't you want to be like them? I don't say that anymore, because the only thing I'd want from them maybe is their talent, but the rest? Media, society has deified these people to be the so-called role models. And I don't know, when did they become experts at everything that they should be my role model? Whether it's politics, society, the environment. Some may know, most will not. But the microphone is shoved in their face, and they're expected to answer in a certain way. They're expected to lead, be a model. They're not. But we're looking for the soundbite, and we're looking for that whole thing. And we're saying, oh, don't you want to be like, and don't you? No, it's far from it. All in all, my statement here today is about not picking individuals, but picking what they do, certain actions, as a role model. And while I have no grandchildren today, I have older children, and when they have children, these are the kinds of conversations I would love to have with them. See, when I was growing up, there was a football player named Tom Brady. And if you were to say to me, okay, he's one of the greatest football players of all time, he's a wonderful guy, blah, 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 blah. David, why is he your role model? You didn't cheer for him or his team. And the answer is yes, because as a sports fan, I didn't cheer for his team. But the actions that Tom Brady has taken over the last 20 years as a professional athlete, and he's been in my face, are the kinds of things that I would want to tell my grandchildren that they should model. And I'm going to take a whole rant just talking about him another time, but his persistence to be the best that he can be, a champion, how he's a teammate, how he's a role model, a leader, not a role model, but a leader, but a humble guy. And you hear stories about him. You're wowed. That's the kind of role modeling I want. I could say the same thing about Tiger Woods in terms of that. But if you were to tell me, David, but Tiger Woods, look at his private life and whatever, don't model that. Learn the opposite. He's not a role model in that sense. But to be the best that he can be in a sport which had no blacks, and he became the poster child for so many years in the sport, amen to that. There are educators, there are a lot of other people I could list out in this today as the kind of people I would want to emulate some of their actions, not all. But I'll even give you one that could be in today's world controversial, and that is a police officer. Whoa, don't yell at me yet. If you're believing in defunding the police, this is not what I'm going at. And don't give me that, all police officers. No, I'm not talking about all police officers. But I have met several police officers that are beyond upstanding citizens. They uphold the law. They respect people. They teach young people the right from wrong. They are role models in many ways. They have a very difficult job. They make a lot of choices, some of the most life-changing, very difficult choices. Folks, you don't have to look very far. In your own community, there are some police officers out there you'd want to emulate. Their actions would be role modeling. What about our religious leaders, whom we've completely forgot? A priest, a rabbi, an imam, head of your religion. You might say that some of them, but look what they teach and look what they want you to do. And there are several of them who go out of their way for charity, helping the needy, helping the sick. Those are the kinds of people I would say, those are the role models. Those are the kinds of people I'd want as my role model. The actions. I would be hard-pressed to find an individual that brings the entire package, that 100% of what they do is a role model. There is no one above us. There's nobody who's going to be perfect. There is nobody who's going to come out there and is going to do and act and think and say and be flawless 100% of the time. We got to use our role models for our children and for society, not as an entity, but as actions, certain actions. Certain things that they do are worthy of being role model-ish. I can't think of any one individual today that I would say that their entirety is a role model. There are business leaders out there that I think have phenomenal skills, leadership skills that I would love to emulate. I don't know their private life. I don't even care about their private life. I don't care about so many things that they do. But there are things that they do in the business world that I think are so worthy of following. So today, when you're sitting at the dinner table and you're talking to your children, your spouse, friends, afterwards, texting, Snapchat, you name whatever you're doing, think of those role models. Who are the kind of people that their actions, some of their actions, are what you want to emulate, that you want to copy, and your children and grandchildren hope to follow in their footsteps with those actions. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, think about it. Put it in our Facebook channel. Tell me who are those people that you think and what are those actions that you believe are worthy. Tell me if you even agree with me, disagree with me. I look forward to hearing your feedback. I'll be back on Friday again with another rant. Look forward to speaking to you all. By then, take care, stay safe, and thanks for your time.